Hello, everybody, and welcome into my 5 takeaways in the SEC. The season is ending here soon, which is sad to say for all us college football diehards, but it's been a fun season. I have no idea who's going to win the national championship or even the SEC, but let's jump into it. Number one has to do with that team behind me, my Texas Longhorns. They have an offensive problem. And not offensive, but it is offensive to the eye sometimes, but I don't know what the hell's going on here. Yeah, they struggled versus Arkansas yesterday because Arkansas predominantly, to me at least, I'm going to have to go back and watch it, played 3 high safeties, which we haven't seen since Iowa State last year for the most part. And some of our counterparts in the Big 12 did it as well. No one in the SEC other than Arkansas has done it. And it slowed us down. But that hasn't been the first time, guys. Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt are the only teams we've scored 30-plus points on. And I said prior to the Florida game coming out of the bye week, if Texas was going to win a national championship or be in that national championship game, they would have to average 31 points a game here on out because they were far behind the average of past national championship winners. They were behind all of them. Even Alabama in 2015, which only averaged like 31 points a game. Texas up until this point in SEC play, it only averaged 27 points per game, or I should say real competitive play. I don't count Colorado State. I don't count Louisiana Monroe. I counted Michigan. Just not good enough offensively. We scored over 40 versus Florida, and then we struggled versus Arkansas, so that has to get better some way, somehow. I don't know how that's going to work. The running game got going a little bit better yesterday, but we still can't attack vertically. And yes, again, they play 3 high safety, so that prevents that. But there were multiple plays in that game where we could have hit them deep. There were a shot or two to Matthew Golden that was there. There was a shot or two to Isaiah Bond that was there, and he did. And Quinn Ewers was unable to hit that. I believe there was like 4 or 5 pass attempts over 25 yards. He went 0 of 5 on all of them. You got to hit one of those to open up this defense and help the running game. Also, in the running game, use the jumbo tight end to Malik Ogbo. I don't know why that went away. I don't know if that was a Paul Chryst idea, but it is not coming into play at all this year. Number 2, DJ Lagway is an absolute stud. He's going to be the future for Florida. That's pretty clear. He played really well, playing on basically one hamstring in the LSU game. He didn't even run around that much. He had 226 yards passing and a touchdown, but it's the plays off script that really make a quarterback great in today's NFL, and he's able to do that countless times. You saw that versus LSU. There was one play where a guy's right in his face. He basically throws off one foot and delivers an absolute dime. The one deep play where he puts him down to the 1-yard line was a beautiful ball from DJ Lagway. He is a stud. I'm going to go on record right now. I think he's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft in 2027. That's how good he is. He's a special player, and there's a good chance they beat Florida State at the end of the year. This team's going bowling, and I said 6-6 keeps Billy Napier's job. They already said it's going to keep his job, and it should. I think they've progressed. I think they're actually fun to watch now. And I think DJ Lagway is a big part of that. Got to build it around him now to keep it going for Florida. Number 3, South Carolina playoffs, possibly. I don't think they're going to, but they've put themselves in that discussion of a 9-3 team, which, I mean, at the end of the day, probably doesn't get them in, but it puts them in the discussion of getting in. And they play Wofford and Clemson. I think they can win both those games. They're at least an 8-4 team. I predicted at the beginning of the season I was higher than most. I had them at 7-5, so that's really impressive to get to 8 or 9 wins. And that was one of my takeaways last week. South Carolina, 8-win team. We will see. It's going to be very fun to watch them play, and they're fun to watch play because of Lenore Sellers. Lenore Sellers threw for 5 touchdowns yesterday. Had over 400 yards passing, I believe, or 400 yards total offense. He's a special player, too. Is he DJ Lagway, like I just said about him? No, but he's still a really good football player, and it's going to be really fun to watch him play. Their losses on the year, a 2-point loss to Alabama, a 3-point loss in LSU with some really bad officiating in that game. They should have won that football game. And then they got blown out by Ole Miss, but that is the only blowout loss of the season. But guess what? Who else got blown out by Ole Miss? Georgia did. So it's really impressive that South Carolina can do this and do this on a consistent basis, week in and week out, honestly, hang around in games and then win games. Do I think Missouri's an overrated football team? Yes, I do. But they still beat them, and a great drive to end that game as well from Lenore Sellers. So overall, really impressed by South Carolina. I think they would give a lot of teams fits in the playoff. It'd be very interesting to see. But who knows, guys? It's going to be very interesting what they do the rest of the year. But they definitely have saved Shane Beamer's job, and they're a fun team to watch. So we'll see what happens the rest of the way. Number 4, the best version of Georgia. So Georgia had not put a full game together, even when they beat my Texas Longhorns. The offense struggled in that game. Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions. The only reason they really put up points because Texas played terribly and gave them the ball on their side of the field. So really impressive yesterday. You put up 31 points versus a defense that honestly, I don't think they had given up more than 20-something points. So really good job by them offensively. Carson Beck, by far his best game, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, but it wasn't even that. Just watching the guy, he was moving around better in the pocket. He was making quick and accurate decisions. And he is great. When he is on, he is great at delivering the seam ball up the middle of the field. He's phenomenal at that. That's something I have yet to see really this year. So really good job for him. I don't know if it was the play calling, the situation. I don't know what clicked yesterday, but it clicked. And if that Georgia team, again, I'm going to say this, but I don't think we're going to get it, honestly, because no team has yet to do this. No team has consistently week in and week out showed their best version of themselves. It has yet to happen. For my Texas team, I have yet to see them play a complete full game. Ohio State, same way. Oregon, same way. I mean, Ohio State was 7-0 with Northwestern the first quarter. There is no dominant team, but if that version of Georgia shows up, that version of Georgia can win the national championship. But you can say that for Oregon. You can say that for Ohio State. You can say that for Ole Miss. You can say that for Alabama. You can say that for Texas. You could say that. I think the list kind of ends there, honestly. Maybe Penn State, but I don't think Tennessee's a national championship contender because I don't believe Nico shows up in the biggest moments. We saw that yesterday in the second half. He played pretty well in the first half, kept him in the game, but after that disappeared. And Georgia, fantastic job, 17-17 at halftime. Tennessee doesn't score the rest of the game, so really good job by them to make halftime adjustments. And again, best version of Georgia can win the national championship, but I could say that for multiple teams, and I've only seen the best version of Georgia second half of Clemson, first half of Texas, second half of Bama, and this full game versus Tennessee. So really, you're only getting, what is that, 10 quarters of best version of yourself in a whole season? That's not good enough to me, but this year it might be. Who knows? We'll have to see. Number 5. Stop scheduling FCS in really bad Division I teams. Auburn played Louisiana and Monroe. If you want to schedule them early in the season like Texas did, I have no issue. Later in the season, it's a joke. Why do you do it? I don't know. Alabama, you scheduled Mercer. Again, do it earlier in the season, not at the end of the season. This should be big-time, real big boy football, and we're not seeing that. New Mexico State for Texas A&M. Can we stop doing that? Listen, my Texas Longhorns have played a somewhat easy schedule. It's still going to be a top 40 schedule when it's all said and done in college football, but it's easy when it comes to SEC standards. But guess what? They didn't schedule an FCS team. Can we stop doing that? It needs to stop. Unless you're doing that in the regular season or early on, I don't have an issue with it. For example, this is how I think every team in college football should schedule going forward. 9 conference games, 1 other Power 4 team, or 2 other Power 4 teams. And then if you want to throw a bone to an FCS team or a lower level Division I team like Louisiana Monroe, go ahead. But that should be the scheduling going forward. I'm sick and tired of playing these cupcakes late in the season. Honestly, I'm sick of them just playing them in general. It's really stupid. I know they could use the money. Guess what? Just cut a check instead, or have them play the spring game versus that team. That would help out as well. It does not make any sense to me. It never will. And that wraps up my 5 takeaways in the SEC for this week. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel and what we're trying to grow. Thank you guys for being here again. I will see you next week. And also Tuesday, live show, SEC, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Please check us out. Thank you, guys.